Happy Wednesday. Welcome. It's June 26th, and we're just about 2 months away from our fantasy draft. So let's get some practice in. We're dead set in the middle of a 12-team PPR mock draft. So if you enjoy, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you do differently. All right, we're over here at pick number 7. Of course, we're dead set in the middle. And of course, we're going to be doing a 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 1 flex format here, and it's going to be full PPR. Now, I've done half PPR in the past. If you want to go check those videos out, go ahead. But today, let's do a full PPR, and this is my exact spot in one of the leagues I'm in. So why not? Let's get some practice here. I've also had some requests from you guys at home. But Christian McCaffrey goes number 1. A strand of wide receivers goes next. Breece Hall at number 6. But one wide receiver that didn't go in that first stretch of wide receivers was Ja'Marr Chase, and he's going to be my selection here at pick number 7. I think that is a steal. I came into this prepping for a guy like Breece Hall, but Ja'Marr Chase, to my surprise and to my delight, falls to the 7th overall pick in the first round. I think he has top 3 wide receiver upside. I think if you want to keep bringing up this I guess, question of who could be the first to crack 2,000 yards, last year I predicted it was going to be Tyreek, and he was on pace before his injury. But this year, I think if I had to bank on anyone, I would bank on Ja'Marr Chase. But of course, after that Ja'Marr Chase selection, we had Bijan, A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua, Jahmyr Gibbs. To close out the first round, it was Marvin Harrison. To open up the second, Saquon, Garrett Wilson, Olave goes a little bit early. Jonathan Taylor and Drake London. Interesting strategy there from team number 8. I know it is just computer generated, but going with 2 Atlanta Falcon weapons is just a bit risky for my liking, but we'll have those homers in our at-home drafts, right? Where they just want to get as many players on their favorite team. Just not really a great strategy. Limit your upside, no doubt about it. But Ja'Marr Chase was our team captain here. Let's give him a running mate. We could go with another top 10 level wide receiver. I know Michael Pittman is still on the board. He's my number 9 wide receiver. We could go with Brandon Ayuk. Of course, my number 10 wide receiver. Start off with a dangerous wide receiver combination, but if Kyren Williams is there in the middle of the second, he's my 6th rated running back. And of course, if you want to see my rankings, I give it to you for absolutely free. Go check out Monday's video. That video is done well. So thank you guys at home for tuning in. It is a great way, is what I'm getting at here. But he's my number 6 or 7 running back in a half PPR format. So again, full PPR. I like him even more here next to Ja'Marr Chase. We have a lot of potential, but also a lot of stability with this early start in Kyren and Ja'Marr Chase. But we're back on the clock here. Of course, we see a lot of different positions go. Sam Laporta, first tight end off the board, which is not a shock to me this year. Josh Allen, of course, going in the late 2nd round, which of course is going to happen in most of our leagues this season. Now, interesting strategy here from team number 1. Again, I get its bots, but I want to throw it out there. They went with Josh Jacobs and Stephon Diggs over maybe Derrick Henry or Travis Etienne. Just an interesting strategy there from team number 10. Again, get your guys I guess is their strategy. But that's going to be our strategy here at pick number 7. We have a long way from our selections for it to come back to us. So to have Ja'Marr Chase and Kyren Williams fall into our laps both times, we've had a great and fortunate start to the draft. But Mike Evans is still on the board. That's a great selection. I also see Michael Pittman. To me, I like Michael Pittman this year. I think with no legitimate tight end in that offense, the safety blanket in that offense for Anthony Richardson is going to be Michael Pittman. They had a great first 3 weeks together before Richardson went down. Shane Steichen is going to focus his number 1 wide receiver in his offense. It might be a shock, but I'm going Michael Pittman in the 3rd round to pair with Ja'Marr Chase and Kyren Williams. I think we have 3 guys that legitimately will finish at least top 10 at their position. Michael Pittman, if he has a better season than I'm thinking, maybe we have 3 guys on our team that finish top 5 at their position. I'm saying the potential is there with the 3 guys that we have. But after our selection, a lot of receivers go. But the biggest thing I want to throw out, 3 quarterbacks have gone since our last selection. And now that puts us in an interesting spot because we have 4 different names that I would love to have on my team here because I see them instantly popping off the charts. Anthony Richardson is a great selection here to get that potential stack. Joe Burrow is a potential stack that we could also have. So for those reasons, I like always having a stack on my teams in full PPR formats. So with that train of thought, I'm going to pass on Lamar Jackson, as crazy as that might sound, and I'm going to wait for either Richardson or Burrow to get back to me in the fifth round. At least that is the pipe dream. Now, with that train of thought, again, Pacheco is someone that jumps off the board, a top 12 running back in my rankings. Cooper Kupp, a top 12 wide receiver, or Trey McBride is another name who is a top 3 tight end to me this season. So I could stack wide receivers. I could go out there and get Isaiah Pacheco, who is an interesting selection. But when we look at the running backs, someone down the board like James Conner could fall to me, which would be an okay running back too. Of course, in his situation, maybe an Aaron Jones falls back to me there on at the 5-7. Cooper Kupp, there's some receivers down the board, and I've gotten Cooper Kupp in I think 1 or 2 mock drafts so far, so I'm going to pass on Cooper Kupp. I'll pass on Lamar Jackson for the stacking opportunity, and I've already had Trey McBride in a draft so far. So what we're going to do, we're going to go out there and just experiment here, right? It's early in the offseason. Let's go out there and get Isaiah Pacheco in the 4th round. I know there's a lot of mouths to feed and only one football there in Kansas City. But if there's an offense that can make that many people fantasy relevant, come on, it's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and that Chiefs offense. But of course, Lamar does eventually go. 3 also tight ends go off the board, which is a bit surprising to me. And of course, Alvin Kamara would fall to the 5th round, where Alvin Kamara is a tremendous value in the 5th round. But tight ends seemingly off the board at this point in the draft. To me, I think we have to go out there and get our quarterback, because the next 2 highest quarterbacks on the board are Richardson and Joe Burrow. I like both of those guys for the potential stacks that they could give us here in 2024. Now, I know Joe Burrow he doesn't have the potential of Anthony Richardson, but I would rather prefer the stacking of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase over Richardson and Michael Pittman. It's a proven duo. We know they're college teammates. I'm going to reach a little bit and take Joe Burrow here for the simple fact that I don't want to lose out on that stack. And of course, both quarterbacks here on the turn. Now we're back here on the clock. Of course, we have our quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. We're not going to take Anthony Richardson, even though that the computer wants us to. And here's my train of thought. Team 4 is the only team ahead of us here on the turn that doesn't have a tight end. Now, that leads me to my decision of, do I want Evan Engram, who's a top 5 tight end for me, or David Njoku? And to me, I'm willing to take the risk that Evan Engram can get back to me in the 7th round. So I'm going to go out there. Of course, we can go with some running backs here. Some running backs on the board. Rhamondre Stevenson, I like. Probably my highest on the board, except for Nick Chubb. I like Nick Chubb this year. Of course, it could be my delusion as a Browns fan, but all reports say he's going to be ready to go early on in the season. And to me, I think 75% of Nick Chubb is better than the majority of starting running backs in the NFL. But again, that could just be my delusion getting in the way. So for that reason, I'm going to pass on Nick Chubb in this mock draft. But going forward, I might start grabbing him in some of these drafts and abusing where it's at this point in the offseason. I lied to you guys. I lied to you guys for the simple fact that I'm going to take Nick Chubb. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm stuck between a lot of running backs here. If I wanted to continue the trend of just grabbing guys I haven't had the chance to in mock drafts, Rhamondre Stevenson would have been that guy. I would have bought into the hype of a guy like Rhamondre, because now he's extended, and I'm warming up to the fact that he might actually be a great fantasy value this season down the board, just like how we were high on him last year, or was that 2 years ago? Regardless, we got Nick Chubb, 3 great running backs, 2 solid wide receivers. It's time to get a top 5 level tight end on my team. And there's been a running joke here on the channel, and of course with the fantasy leagues that I do play in. But it seems like Mike Evans in his career, every single time he plays me, seemingly I always run into his 30-point performance on the year. His best performance on the year, Mike Evans always seems to be against myself, no matter what league it's in, right? No matter what format. Seemingly one guy I can never get my hands on, but he always seems to dominate me in our fantasy matchups. But, in the last 2 years, since he's been in Jacksonville, Evan Ingram has been that guy for me. He's added onto that list of a guy that seemingly has his best performances when Owen is on the schedule. But again, shorter mock draft here. Again, this is a mock draft here that we like to do that it just gives you an overall idea of how your draft could go at the number 7 spot. So if you go with a balanced approach, you could have a lineup here where you go with a Joe Burrow as your quarterback, Kyren and Pacheco at your running backs, Jamar, Michael Pittman, Evan Ingram, and if you're as bullish on him as me, getting a guy like Nick Chubb down the board in round number 6 or even round number 7. But to me, this is definitely a balanced approach you can take in a full PPR format. But in round number 8, we're back on the clock. Brock Bowers, if we just want to say, okay, we have a steady lineup, a lineup that we know what we're going to get for the most part, let's go out there and just shoot for upside. Jonathan Brooks kind of sticks out to me. And honestly, he's probably going to be my selection here. DeAndre Hopkins, great, solid wide receiver. We know what we're getting with D-Hop. Dallas Goedert, TJ Hockenson, great values down the board. But we just took a tight end. Let's go out there and grab strictly upside. The running back out of Texas had a knee injury last year, of course, but he's coming back into a Dave Canales offense. And if there's one thing we've learned the last 2 years, he can revitalize that quarterback. And to me, the biggest beneficiary last year, like we saw how he revitalized Baker Mayfield in that receiving game, sure. Chris Godwin had an okay season. Mike Evans had a resurgence year from his Hall of Fame career. But Rachaad White had a breakout season, receiving the ball especially. And Jonathan Brooks, to me, is going to be the running back that's going to take over in this offense, and he's going to get a lot of receiving work, and he has dynamic when he has the ball in his hands. He reminds us of an Alvin Kamara. So I like Jonathan Brooks and his upside here in 2024. And to get him as our 3rd running back or 4th running back, we're shooting for upside, right? We're shooting for that upside in that fantasy championship potentially down the road. We're back on the clock here. Of course, Zach Moss is another running back that sticks out. Of course, number 1 running back in an offense that should be competing at a high level. But I don't want to get that many Bengals in my lineup because we already have Burrow and we already have Chase. Brock Purdy, of course, if this was a real draft, maybe we go grab our backup quarterback. But we're only doing 10 rounds because we just want to get an idea of how you can take or what approach you can take in your real life drafts. Now, if it was my real life draft, I'll be honest. TJ Hockenson would be a name I'm looking at here because we already have a solid tight end and a tight end in Evan Ingram. Say that 2 or 3 times. We can go out there and we can afford to draft TJ Hockenson with our steady lineup. Let him sit 4 to 5 weeks, and when he comes back from from the IR, this is a guy that we could plug and play into our lineup. And last year, with subpar quarterbacks, he was a top 3 tight end on the season. So Hockenson definitely sticks out to me. But let's look at the wide receivers. Let's do our due diligence here as guys like Khalil Shakir. If you believe in his upside, Courtland Sutton has made a career out of making subpar quarterbacks look okay. So maybe that is potentially a pick here. Romeo Doubs is actually a great option down the board. Curtis Samuel, of course, if you believe in his upside. But we're going to go out there. I talked myself into it. We're going to grab TJ Hockenson. To me, I have 2 top 10 tight ends on the board. And yes, I understand Hockenson is going to miss some time, but I still think he's a top 10 tight end, especially at his value in 2024. So that gives us interesting lineup possibilities of if we have some bye weeks, we can have, 2 tight end lineups, right? Or of course, if Evan Ingram gets hot and we want to trust Hockenson when he comes back, maybe Evan Ingram could be an interesting trade piece down this season. But let's go out there and grab another wide receiver. And you know what? I'm going to probably reach heavily on this pick. But to me, I want to just throw another name out there that you guys can draft down the boards. And of course, don't take him in round 10. Take him in round 14 through 16. But a guy like Roman Wilson, a guy that to me is stepping into a viable role in this Pittsburgh offense. Rookie wide receiver, great route runner out of Michigan. And George Pickens is going to get a lot of attention in this Pittsburgh offense. So I think that's going to open up a lot of opportunity with his playmaking and route running ability for Roman Wilson to be a great option in this offense from day one. So I think he's going to have a great potentially a great rookie season here in year number 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, other guys like Ladd McConkey, great rookie wide receiver with tremendous upside. that we've drafted a lot here in 2024 so far. So another wide receiver sleeper guy down the board, Roman Wilson, to round out the roster. So let's quickly recap here. If you want to go with a balanced approach with the number 6 or 7 overall selection in your 12-team leagues, it could look something like this. Now, we got fortunate. Ja'Marr Chase fell to us, and so did Kyren Williams. But our lineup could have also looked like Breece Hall, and it could have looked like Drake London. Something of that nature, right? But you go out there and you get Ja'Marr Chase, Kyren Williams, Michael Pittman in the third round. Again, tremendous value. If you, I guess, unless you have a lot of questions about Anthony Richardson's health, again, they still have Joe Flacco, still a solid backup that will get Michael Pittman the ball, as we saw with Amari Cooper last year in Cleveland. Pacheco, Chubb, and Brooks round out the running back room. We got the stack with Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase. And, of course, 2 top 10 tight ends and Roman Wilson to round it out. Now, again, if I was drafting seriously, maybe we don't go Roman Wilson in the 10th round, but we go a different option, maybe a Ladd McConkey. But you guys get the picture. That is just an approach you could take with the middle of your drafts. And if you enjoy, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Again, we're approaching 20,000 subscribers, and we can't get there without you guys.